What happens when two music legends collide on live television in a way nobody saw coming? What happens when respect turns to tension and tension explodes into something that shocks an entire studio audience? Today, we're breaking down the moment Kelly Clarkson did the unthinkable during her show. And trust me, you need to hear every single word of what went down. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me whose side you're on after you hear this whole story. So picture this. Kelly Clarkson's show is rolling. The audience is pumped, and Willie Nelson walks out to massive applause. Everyone's expecting the usual warm conversation. Some laughs, maybe Willie strumming a guitar. Kelly starts off bright and friendly, welcoming him like she always does with her guests. She's smiling. The crowd is cheering, and Willie settles into his chair with that calm, weathered presence he's known for. Kelly kicks things off light. She says, "Willie, it's such an honor to have you here. You've been making music longer than I've been alive." The audience laughs. Willie nods with a slight grin. She continues, "I grew up listening to your songs on road trips with my family. Your voice is like, I don't know. It's like the sound of America itself." Willie thanks her, his voice low and steady. He says, "Well, I appreciate that, Kelly. I've been doing this a long time, that's for sure. Just trying to keep the songs honest. Keep them real." Kelly nods enthusiastically and says, "And that's what people love about you. You've never compromised. You've always stayed true to yourself, your sound, your values." She pauses and adds, "Speaking of values, I wanted to ask you about something you said recently in an interview. You mentioned that newer artists today don't have the same grit, the same authenticity that your generation had. Can you elaborate on that?" The atmosphere shifts slightly. Willie adjusts in his seat, and you can feel a little tension creeping in. He says, "Well, I think what I meant was that the industry has changed. It's more about the business now than the music. Back in my day, you had to really earn it. You played dive bars. You traveled in beat-up vans. You lived the songs you wrote." Kelly's smile stays, but there's a sharpness in her eyes now. She says, "Right, but Willie, a lot of us did that too. I mean, I came from nothing. I sang in bars. I worked terrible jobs. I fought my way through a competition show just to get a shot. Are you saying that doesn't count as earning it?" Willie looks at her directly and says, "I'm not talking about you specifically, Kelly. I'm talking about the system. The way people get manufactured now. The way producers create sounds in a lab instead of letting artists find their own voice." Kelly leans forward slightly, her tone still pleasant, but firmer. She says, "Okay, but you do realize that sounds a little dismissive, right? Like you're putting everyone who came after your generation in a box. I had producers too, Willie. I had a team, but that doesn't mean I didn't work hard. That doesn't mean my music isn't real." Willie doesn't back down. He says, "I'm sure you worked hard, Kelly. I'm not questioning that. What I'm questioning is whether the soul of music is still there when everything is focus grouped and marketed before it even reaches people's ears." The audience is quiet now. You can feel people shifting in their seats. Kelly's jaw tightens just a little. She says, "So, you think American Idol winners? You think artists like me who came through reality TV were part of the problem?" Willie exhales slowly and says, "I think the problem is bigger than any one person. But yes, I think shows like that changed what music is. They made it a product. They made it about image and marketability instead of raw talent and truth." Kelly sits back in her chair, and for a moment, she doesn't say anything. The silence is heavy. Then she speaks, her voice controlled but clearly upset. She says, "Willie, with all due respect, that's incredibly unfair. You don't get to decide what's authentic and what's not based on how someone got their start. I've written songs. I've poured my heart into my music. I've connected with millions of people. And you're sitting here on my show telling me it's not real because I didn't do it your way." Willie remains calm, almost too calm. He says, "I'm not telling you your feelings aren't real, Kelly. I'm saying the industry packaged those feelings and sold them. There's a difference." Kelly's face flushes slightly. She says, "Wow. Okay, so basically, you're saying I'm a puppet. That's what you're saying. That everything I've accomplished is just because some executives pulled the right strings." Willie shakes his head slowly. He says, "You're putting words in my mouth." Kelly cuts him off. She says, "No, I'm listening to the words coming out of your mouth, Willie. And what I'm hearing is a legend who's so stuck in the past that he can't recognize real artistry when it's sitting right in front of him." The audience gasps quietly. Willie's expression doesn't change much, but there's a flicker of something. Annoyance maybe, or disappointment. He says, "I've recognized plenty of real artistry in my life, Kelly. And I've also seen plenty of people who got famous for reasons that had nothing to do with their music." Kelly stands up abruptly, and the audience reacts with audible surprise. She says, "Unbelievable. You know what, Willie? I invited you here because I respect your legacy. I respect what you've done for country music. But I'm not going to sit here and let you disrespect me, my journey, or the millions of artists who've worked just as hard as you did, just in different ways." Willie stands up, too, slower, more deliberate. He says, "I'm not disrespecting you, Kelly. I'm being honest. Maybe that's something you're not used to hearing." Kelly's eyes widen at that last comment. She says, "Not used to hearing honesty. Are you serious right now?" "Willie, I've spent my entire career being honest. I've talked about my struggles, my insecurities, my failures. I've been more honest than half the artists from your generation who pretended everything was perfect." Willie's voice remains steady, almost maddeningly calm. He says, "Talking about struggles in interviews isn't the same as living them in your music. There's a difference between performing vulnerability and actually being vulnerable." Kelly laughs, but there's no humor in it. She says, "Performing vulnerability, that's rich coming from someone who's made millions singing about heartbreak and hard times. You don't think you are performing too, Willie? You don't think every single artist, including you, puts on some kind of show?" Willie says, "Of course, I put on a show, but the difference is I lived those songs before I sang them. I wasn't given a song by a team of writers who researched what would connect with audiences. I wrote from experience, from real pain, real joy, real life." Kelly crosses her arms. She says, "And you think I haven't experienced pain? You think I haven't lived? I was broke, Willie. I was sleeping on friends' couches. I had record labels reject me. I had people tell me I wasn't thin enough, pretty enough, marketable enough, and when I finally got my shot, I took it. I'm not going to apologize for that." Willie responds, "I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to understand why someone like me might look at the current state of music and feel like something's been lost. When I see shows where people vote on artists like it's a popularity contest, when I see singers who can't even play an instrument, when I see songs written by committees, yeah, I think something's missing." Kelly's voice rises slightly. She says, "You know what's missing, Willie? Evolution. Progress. The ability to recognize that music can be different and still be meaningful. You're acting like your way is the only way. And that's not just wrong, it's arrogant." The audience is completely silent now. Some people look uncomfortable. Willie tilts his head slightly and says, "So, I'm arrogant for having standards?" Kelly shoots back. "You're arrogant for thinking your standards are the only ones that matter. Music isn't just one thing, Willie. It's not just country roads and honky-tonks and suffering for your art. It's also joy. It's also production. It's also performance. And none of that makes it less real." Willie says quietly, "I never said it was less real. I said it was different." Kelly shakes her head. She says, "No, you didn't just say different. You said it wasn't authentic. You said artists like me are manufactured. Those aren't neutral observations, Willie. Those are judgments, and they're insulting." Willie's expression hardens slightly. He says, "If you're insulted by someone pointing out that the music industry has become more commercialized, then maybe you need to ask yourself why that bothers you so much." Kelly's face goes red. She says, "It bothers me because I've spent 20 years proving that I'm more than a product. I've made music that matters to people. I've used my voice to connect, to heal, to inspire. And you're sitting here, a guest on my show, diminishing all of that because you don't approve of how I got started." Willie stands a little straighter. He says, "I came on your show because I was asked. I didn't come here to fight." but I'm not going to lie about how I feel just to make you comfortable. Kelly says, comfortable? You think this is about comfort? This is about respect, Willie. Basic respect. You don't come into someone's house and tell them everything they've built is fake. Willie says, I never used the word fake. Kelly interrupts him. She says, you didn't have to. It was in every word you said. You've been condescending since the moment this conversation started, and I'm done pretending it's okay. Willie's voice rises for the first time. He says, you asked me a question, Kelly. You brought this up. If you didn't want an honest answer, you shouldn't have asked. Kelly fires back. Oh, so now this is my fault. I ask you to elaborate on comments you made publicly, and somehow I'm the problem because I didn't just nod along while you insulted my entire career. Willie says I didn't insult your career. I criticized a system. If you can't separate yourself from that system, that's your issue, not mine. Kelly steps closer, and you can see her hands trembling slightly. She says, the system gave me a platform, Willie. The system gave me a chance when nobody else would. So, yeah, I'm part of it, and I'm proud of what I've done with that chance. I'm not going to stand here and apologize for succeeding. Willie says, nobody's asking you to apologize for succeeding, but maybe, just maybe, you could acknowledge that success doesn't automatically equal artistry. The audience gasps louder this time. Kelly's mouth drops open. She says, did you just say that? Did you actually just say that to me? Willie doesn't flinch. He says, I said what I said. Kelly takes a deep breath, and when she speaks again, her voice is shaking. She says, you know what, Willie? I've defended you. When people said you were washed up, I defended you. When people said your music was outdated, I said, no, he's a legend. He deserves respect. And this is how you repay that? By coming on my show and disrespecting me in front of my audience, in front of millions of viewers. Willie says, if you think honesty is disrespect, then we have very different definitions of both words. Kelly says, honesty without kindness is just cruelty, Willie. And right now, you're being cruel. Willie looks at her for a long moment, then says, I'm sorry you feel that way. Kelly laughs again, that same bitter laugh. She says, you're sorry I feel that way. Not sorry for what you said, just sorry that I'm upset about it. That's not an apology, Willie. That's a dismissal, Willie says. I'm not going to apologize for my opinions, Kelly. I've earned the right to have them. Kelly's voice drops to something colder, more controlled. She says, and I've earned the right to not have them thrown in my face on my own show. This is my stage, Willie.
Mine.
And I decide who gets to stand on it. Willie looks at her with that same calm expression, but there's a new edge to his voice. He says, are you threatening to kick me off your show, Kelly? Kelly doesn't hesitate. She says, I'm telling you that if you can't show me basic respect, then yes, you need to leave. This isn't a debate stage. This is a talk show.
My talk show. And I'm